No, there's another.
So, I'm here.
You should be at the way your planes are falling apart in the air. The planes breaking off.
I think that's one of their things you worked on before you left, right?
Your engines.
I think that's when the mechanics went on strike and they called out all the people in the,
Okay. Welcome everybody. We are going to continue this week's Torah portion, which is Tazria-Metzora. 2 Parshiyos, a double Parsha this week. And you can find it in the book of Vayikra on page 608, is where Parshat Tazria begins. And it goes all the way through Tazria, followed by Parshat Metzora, all the way till page 634. The main discussion of both of these parashiyot is the laws of tzoras. Tzoras, translated usually as leprosy in English, and this is this is the popular translation of the word tzoras. Also as a disease which spreads, as the Torah discusses, on the skin, on the clothes, the house. The consequences for tzoras is very strict. Probably the most strict punishment or dealing with a person which experiences impurity is isolation. Not only is the Metzora, the one who experiences tzoras, isolated from the general community, but is further isolated even from the Metzoraim, even from people who are Tamei. He is also isolated from them, separated from them. There's an expression in the famous book called Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, Ein Ra Minega. There's nothing more evil than a nega, than the nega is the stain of leprosy. That's what Sefer Yetzirah says. Ein Ra Minega ve'ein Tov mi'oneg. There's nothing worse than a nega, and there's nothing better than oneg. Oneg means indulgement. Obviously, the word nega exchanges with the same word oneg. That's you're using the same letter. Ayin, nun, gimel is for oneg. Oneg means delight, indulgement. Nega is nun, gimel, ayin, which is the stain of leprosy. What I would like to discuss tonight is one specific type of legacy, and this is the legacy of homes. Homes related to the homes of Eretz Yisrael. Israel is being celebrated today and tomorrow. And modern day Israel celebrates a 70-year anniversary since the declaration as his own independent state. Eretz Yisrael was always our home from the beginning. But we will find some interesting ideas in the tzoras related to homes, specifically related to the land of Israel, and even further related to the promise when God told Abraham about the land of Israel. So what we're going to start is, first of all, to turn to the pasuk in the order of Negoim, which is the psukim which deals specifically with negoim, leprosy, and homes. Okay? Which is in chapter 33 and onward. I'm sorry, chapter 13, verse 33 and onward.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 14. In Parshat. Yeah. Okay, so it's page 624 in the bottom, or 625 if you are reading it in English. Vayedaber Hashem el Moshe vel Aaron leimor. Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron saying, Ki tovou el eretz Canaan, when you arrive in the land of Canaan, Asher ani noisen lochem la'achuzo, that I give you as a possession, as an inheritance. Venosati nega tzoras bebeis eretz achuzaschem, and I will place a tzoras affliction, but that's the word nega. Nega means affliction. I will place it upon a house in the land of your possession. And once you see the nega in your house, says the next verse, what is you have to do? Uboloi, uboa shaloi abayis. The one to whom the house belongs comes, the igid lekohen, and declares it to the kohen, leimor, to tell him, ke nega nira li babayis. Something like a nega, like an affliction, appeared to me in the house. He doesn't declare it to be a definite nega, even if he's a scholar and he knows and he's familiar with the complicated laws of negaim. Still, our sages tell us, based on the word kenega, like a nega, like an affliction, is to indicate that the greatest scholar who knows the laws of negaim should not make a statement, should not define it as a nega, rather he should say kenega. Not sure, let the Kohen decide. The Kohen comes, as you see in the next verse, and before he's coming into the house, they actually empty out the house, they clear out the house of his belongings, because once it becomes contaminated, everything else becomes tummy. So they take everything else of the house, he examines it, puts it in isolation for 7 days, he comes back, he's watching the spread. It comes to a point that if it is determined to be a nega, they have to demolish it. Some stones have to be removed, sometimes the house has to be demolished, and on and on. This is the laws of nega, which the Torah goes on in the many verses following this page. Nega, which appears as a house. The way the verse is written is basically informing you. Venosati, I am going to place a nega in your house. It's as if God is telling Moshe and Aaron, I have some great news that you can share with your people. What is the great news? Once they arrive in Israel, I am going to place a nega in their houses. What are you telling me? That I'm going to be homeless? My home is going to get demolished? What kind of news is that? So there's a famous Rashi. Rashi quotes a medrash, and Rashi says that actually Besura, he lohem. Actually, these words is an implication that God is conveying a Besura. Besura means good news. What is the good news? Negoim boim aleim, that Negoim, affliction, will actually appear on your houses. And how is that good news? Brings Rashi from the Medrash. Lefi sheitminu emoriim matmoiniyoi shel zohov bekirois boteyem kol arboim shono she'oyu Yisrael b'midbar. The Amorites, a specific nation, Rashi says, the Amorites were actually storing their gold, not money, not silver, gold, in the walls of their homes throughout the 40 years that the Jews were in the desert. And then the Amorites left Israel. And how do you know what's in your wall? They are nega, by God placing a nega, an affliction of the house. Noitet sabayis, the Kohen has to demolish the house, the wall. Umoitzon, and then there's these, that's how you're going to find the gold. This is what Rashi says. Look at this Rashi and it sounds very strange. First of all, why is it the Amorites? We all read always about 7 nations who lived in the land of Israel. And he mentioned them every day by davening. God made a covenant with Abraham to give him at Eretz, a Knani, Chiti, Moiri, Prizi, Chivi, Yevusi, Goshi. There is 10 nations which were the main nations who settled the land of Israel, which all of them are being transferred, are being removed, or fleeing the country, or fighting and then losing at war and ending up with their homes going to the Israelites. This was the conquering of Israel led by Yeshua ben Nun. Right? Yeshua conquered the land. From who did he have to conquer it? From those 7 nations. So what is it about the Amorites that they somehow left gold in their walls and it is their homes which is going to be detected through tzoras, leprosy, discovering those treasures? Question number 1. Question number 2, why are they stacking their walls for 40 years? Rashi says 40 years they are stacking their walls, placing those treasures of gold and 40 years. They're not going to make it here for another 40 years. You have that much gold that it takes them 40 years to stack it up. You would have assumed that once we hear the Jews are coming, so then you make a hole in the wall, put away the gold. 40 years you're keeping yourself away, separated, detached from your gold because the Jews might come 40 years from now. 40 years. And also, why is it the gold? What about their silver? What about their money? Their dollars? Their rubles? That doesn't have to be stacked. They might take the 2. What about their diamonds? Their jewelry? Gold utensils. How much gold do you have? The gold, the golden becher, the golden plate, that was stacked away. Why the gold? Matter of fact, if you look in the Medrash, which is the source for this Rashi, the Medrash writes this Rashi a little differently. This is what the Medrash says, chapter 17, Medrash 6, the Medrash says as follows. Then the Canaanites heard that the Jews are coming. First of all, the Medrash does not mention the Amorites. He says the Canaanites, which can mean the inhabitants of Canaan. It can mean all the nations, because the entire country was perhaps called Canaan. When they heard that the Israelites are coming, they went and they were hiding their money in their homes. It doesn't say gold, money, mamonam. What does God do in order to discover the money? He places leprosy afflictions on their homes. The Israelites ends up demolishing the home and he finds the treasure. Says the Medrash, who told the Knainites that the Jews are actually coming? Who is informing them that we are coming into the land? Says the Medrash, Shlosha Pruz Dagmaot, which means basically 3 letters, or 3, what do you call them, that you send, mivrakim, like a post, telegrams. 3 telegrams. Shalach Yehoshua Etzlam. Joshua bin Nun, before coming into the land, he sent over to Israel 3 telegrams to all the nations. Number 1 said, Arotzel ifnot yifneh. Anybody who wants to move out, move out. Now is the time. Option number 1. Then came a second telegram. Arotzel ashlim, yashlim. Anybody who wants to stay but make peace, we welcome peace. We're not looking to fight with you. As long as you're ready to live with us peacefully, bevakasha, pajalista. Then he sent a 3rd letter. La'asot milchama. Anybody who wants to go fight, if you have plans to wage war, bevakasha, yaseh. We are ready for that too. So 3 letters, one informing them, pack your bags, move what you want, take everything you want, no one's going to bother you, you can leave the country in the best honorable way you want. Number 2, you're ready to make peace. Number 3, we're going to fight. According to this midrash, when did the Knainites hid? When were they hiding those treasures, this money in the walls? After they received a letter from Joshua. The news had arrived, a letter coming from the great leader of the Jewish people, Yeshua ben Nun, who is telling them, Rabbi, we are coming. When was that? Just before the Jews entered the land. Yeshua was only appointed as the successor of Moshe before entering the land, right? So at that point, when the letters arrived, is when they went and they said, oh, time to put away our money in the walls. Rashi changes the medrash. Rashi writes that the Amorites buried their gold in the walls throughout the 40 years that the Jewish people stayed in the desert. The truth is, before I asked you a question, why do they have to spend 40 years? And why would they go altogether to, who say the Jews are coming so quick? So really, Rashi, from the simple reading of the Torah, Rashi makes more sense than the Medrash. How do we know? Because everyone who was in Shul a week ago, when we read the crossing of the sea, or if those who pray every day and read the crossing of the sea and the song of the sea, so it says clearly that when the Jewish people crossed the sea, Nomogu kol yoshvei Knan, we read every day, the inhabitants of Canaan became very frightened. What was their fear? You live in Canaan. Why are you afraid that the Jews crossed the sea? So it says clearly they were afraid because we are coming. We're crossing the sea, we are on the way to Eretz Yisrael. They said they are coming to destroy us and to inherit the land, to possess the land. Actually, in the book of Yeshua, when the 2 spies came to meet this woman, Rachav, Remember the home, Rachel? They stayed by this lady. David, you remember? You were there? No.
No, I was,
I want to make sure. So in the house of Rachel,
I was busy doing something else.
so it says, she tells them, in the book of Yeshua, it says, Yodati ki nosal Hashem lochem ha'oretz. I know, she said, that God is giving you the land. V'chinomoigu kol yoshvei ha'oretz mipneichem. She said, I'm sharing, she's a woman which, she was informed the news of town. She was busy with people who can always share with her the news. And she says, No moigu kol yoshvei ha'oretz mipneichem. The book of Yeshua writes, she told the spies, you should know that the people of Canaan, of the land, were all very afraid of you. Ki shomanu et asher oivish Hashem es mei yamsuf mipneichem betzeschem mitzrayim. Because we heard that God had drawn, it caused the water of the Yamsuf to dry out on your way out of Egypt. So we knew, and she tells them, that it's very, here in this town, in this country, we are very afraid of the Jews. We know what happened to you. And since that point, you're on your way here. The truth is, if you read those verses, you wonder to yourself, what does the Medrash mean? Who told Knainites that the Jews are coming? It says already 40 years earlier that they are concerned about our coming. They know that we are coming. And the question becomes, why did they have to wait to get letters of Yeshua? We knew that they are coming. Immediately, when they saw, especially in the desert, that Sichon, the king of Amori, Og, the king of Bashan, when they saw the wars with those kings, and they realized that there's no one standing now between them and Israel. Exactly. One Sichon and Og was there, could have been a little encouragement that these two mighty nations are going to prevent the Jews to come. But now that Sichon is gone, and Og is gone, so the next thing you know, they are coming. You don't need to wait to receive a telegram from Yeshua Benun that we are making on our way to Israel in order to go and put away the gold. The truth is that going in to hide money in the walls actually represents a paradox. It represents a paradox. What is the paradox? In one end, that means I'm afraid. I'm going to be chased away from my house. I'm going to be transported from my house. Right? They're going to throw me out from here, from my land. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to stay home. So I'm taking my money and I'm hiding it in the wall. So you know you're not going to be there. In the other end, why are you hiding it? If you know that you're not going to be there, why are you hiding it? So the very act of hiding gold is that paradox. You show that you know I'm going to be chased out, but I'm not giving up hope completely. Right? I'm not giving up hope completely. I'm still assuming I still have some type of hope, sometimes of feel that I am going to come back to my house. And that's why I'm hiding it. Matter of fact, in World War II, we know people who placed treasures of silverware, books, albums, pictures in the grounds of their backyards. Why are you taking it out of your house? Because you know your house is not going to be yours. The enemy is coming. So why are you putting it in your backyard? Because you have a little feel in your heart which says, if I come back, I have my dishes, I have my pictures, I have my scrolls, I have my books. This is the paradox of hiding treasures in the in the homes, knowing that you are going to be chased away from that house. True? So to say that the reason they were hiding this money was because the Jews are coming, then it wouldn't mean just because they're afraid that they're going to be thrown out of the house. Just only because of that they should go and hide it. It doesn't make enough sense. It means that they were feeling that there is still a reason to keep it. What's the reason? So the Medrash actually makes more sense than Rashi here. Because when you look at the letters that Yeshua bin Nun said them, Rashi doesn't mention those letters, right? But the Medrash does mention those letters. And when you read those letters, and one of the letters says what? That if you want to make peace, he will keep you. He will keep you. So they obviously understood that it doesn't mean for sure that we are going to be chased out of our land. Because there's always this possibility of making peace. And even practically, we're not going to make peace, we're going to fight, you still don't give up hope completely. My children are going to make peace. Someone is eventually going to make peace. As long as peace is an option, I still have the hope that someone is going to come back home. And therefore, it makes sense, according to the Medrash, why they were hiding it. Because the Medrash clearly learns that there was letters. He mentions us letters that Yeshua sent them. And as long as you know that there are letters that Yeshua bin Nun sent them and there's an option of peace, at that point, we understand the paradox of knowing that you've been thrown out and at the same time placing them in the walls because you always live with hope that I'm going to be back. Machon? Makes sense. Rashi still needs clarification. Rashi, that they went, that's because they heard that the Jews are coming 40 years. They're going and hiding this money, this gold. Right away, you have to start hiding it? Yes. It takes time. From even crossing the sea before they got stuck there for 40 years, it still takes time to get from Yam Suf to the land of Israel. Especially that you see, and I'm sure it was all over the news, that they are now going to stay for 40 years in the desert. Nachon? Everybody knew about it. Everything was known there. How it was known without CNN and without WhatsApp, we know it was known. Because when the story happened and God was upset, ready to destroy them for the sin of the golden calf, what did Moshe say? The first word that Moshe told God, you cannot do it because the nations of the world are going to say, for you not able to bring them up to the land, you slaughtered them in the desert. How the nations of the world going to know exactly what happened in the desert? I can't tell you the scientific way of how news was transported and transmitted from one person to another. But clearly you see from the Torah and you see from the reading of the Psukim that there was some channel which delivered the news of what takes place with the Jews. To the point that it was Moshe's concern.
We see that from Moshe's father-in-law, knowing what happened before he
knowing what happened after Amalek and knowing what happened. But you can say if the whole of his family, so he got a letter from his son-in-law, some son-in-law speak to their father-in-law. So it could be he got a letter, telling them, we here, we survived, we made it. But here, it's very clear. In the verses, it's very clear that the news was going around. I will let Mr. Jerry Guest tell us exactly how it worked and who was responsible for delivering the news. He's the man of science and Torah. But this is the fact. It says, and in that case, So everybody hears that now they are going to stay in the desert for 40 years. So what does Rashi say? Why are you going to hide? What's the point of washing and hiding the treasures? Why would they need to do it? Especially Rashi again uses the Amorites, and I think in the word Amorites there lies the secret. So you obviously want to know what is it about the Amorites. So about that, I'm going to take you back to the beginning. Remember the beginning? Which beginning? That we were promised Israel. Let's see what God tells Abraham in that promise. So turn to Bereshit, chapter 15, verse 16. And here you would see a careful Rashi here with his explanation. Bereshit chapter 15 is the famous section which talks about the covenant between the parts. Brit ben Abetarim. Page 66 to 67 in English. This is the time that Avram is put to sleep. In the season of vision, God tells them, don't be afraid. Al tira Avram, don't be afraid, Avram. Anochim agen lach, I'm going to protect you. Scharcha al be'meod, your reward is great. He takes them out, and he tells them, Abetna shamayma usfora kochavim. Count the stars, Hashem tells them. Avram is nervous. How is it going to happen? Can you count them? This is the future of your family, of your descendants. Numerous stars. He believes in Hashem. And then he promises them to give him the land. On verse 7, Latet lecha et haaretz hazot lerishta. I'm giving you this land, the land of Israel, to your inheritance, to your offspring. And he falls asleep, and there's the birds, and there's darkness, which is the gullus. And Hashem tells them as follows. Let's read verse 13, 14, and 15 on page 68 and 69. So you're going to find out a little bit about the Amorite. Why are they rushing to hide their gold? Vayomer leAvram, and Hashem said to Avram, Yoidoya teida ki geiri ezaracho be'eretz lo Elohem. You should know certainly that your offspring are going to be aliens, strangers in a land not theirs, not their own. And they will serve them, and they will be oppressed. They will oppress them for 400 years. This is the famous exile in Egypt, Galut Mitzrayim, that we just celebrated in the Exodus a few weeks ago. Oh. Says verse 14, but also the nation that they will serve, I shall judge. I am going to take care of Egypt. Don't think that it's going to get it so easy. I'm going to judge them. I'm going to afflict them. The famous 10 plagues and further. And afterwards, after the plagues, they will leave Egypt with great wealth. And what's going to happen after? And what's going to happen to you, Avram? Hashem tells them, Ve'ato, don't worry, you're not going down to Egypt. Ato tavoy el avisecha b'shalom. But as for you, you shall come to your ancestors in peace. You're going to meet with your ancestors. Famous question. What's so great to know that you're going to meet with a father like Terach? Rashi says, Terach actually did tshuva. And Avram is going to reunite with his family. Tikover b'seiva toiva. You are going to be buried b'seiva toiva Others they translate in a good old age. Rashi explains, even Ishmael the tshuva. Fine. When is it going to happen? You told me Egypt, fine. You told me I'm going to die and not see the exile of Egypt, fine. You told me the land. When are they going back to that land that you just promised me? Says Pasik Ted Zayin Pasik 16. Vedoy Revi Yashuvu Eino. And the fourth generation shall return. They're going to get exiled into Egypt. And there are going to be 3 generations. The fourth generation is going to be the generation who is coming to return to this land of Israel. Heino. Heino means here. Who is here? Where does Hashem speak to Avraham? In Israel. So he tells them, in Israel, right here, where I'm creating and establishing this covenant, here is where the fourth generation after Egypt is going to come in here. Why fourth generation? Says the verse, Ki loi sholem avoin ohem moiri ad heino. For the iniquity of the Amorite, just the Amorite, shall not yet be full until then. What does that mean?
They're going to do other transgressions.
Who is they?
The Amorites.
There is something with the Amorites which Hashem is not ready to punish them yet. Hashem does not punish a nation until their lot is full to the max. And for that, you're going to have to wait. Once their lot is full, then you know, I'm ready to get rid of them, and you make your way in.
He said the same thing about Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cup was full.
The cap has to fill up. Exactly. Look at footnote 16. In addition, for the 400 years mentioned above, this verse gives 2 more guideposts to Israel's occupation of the land. It will be 4 generations after the beginning of the Egyptian exile. That's number 1. And the Amorites, representing all the Canaanite nations, will have accumulated enough sin to deserve expulsion. The later condition was necessary because God does not punish a nation until its, quotation, measure of sin is full. The cup has to be filled. This is an example of His patience. For even the worst sinners are not punished until they have had more than ample opportunity to repent. I have time, the Rabbi says. Ki lo yisholem avona emoiri. So Rashi makes very well sense. According to Rashi, you know what happened? When the Jewish people came into the land, you know, there were 7 nations. But they weren't all sent out together. There was one nation who was sent out first, and that was the Amorite, because their cup was already filled. This is the Amorite. The Ibn Ezra actually says that they were a very strong nation, and so on and so on. So why were they hiding the gold? Why were they hiding the gold?
Why?
The Amorites
I
for
read it-
40 years.
I read, for 40 years?
Yeah. Why does Rashi mention the Amorites necessarily?
We just read why he mentioned it.
Because when you left Egypt, they knew already what happens. When the Amorites read the news and they see the Jewish people left Egypt, what do they know? At this point, condition number one is complete. 4 generations. The 4th generation is coming home. So they knew once this happens, it means that our cup is filled too. And our time has arrived. We are going to be thrown out of the country. So at that moment, immediately after they left Egypt, they right away began for this entire 40 years to hide their gold, because they knew the time has come for the seeds of Abraham to return back home. So they, the Amorites, are the ones who are immediately getting busy with that, because everybody knew what God told Abraham. God told Abraham, the 4th generation plus the cup of the Amorites is full, is when the kids are coming up. The 4th generation just arrived. They left Egypt. We are next. Let's start piling. Let's start working.
זה לא הגיוני שיקחו את הכסף, את הזהב?
Oh, very good question.
למה שיחזירו?
So why should they hide it? Should they probably take it? So here comes a very interesting insight by the Rebbe. Very good question. Good question. So why wouldn't, if you know you're going, why are you taking it? So the Rebbe very nicely. The Amorite told himself as follows. You clearly see that to be privileged to live in the land of Israel, you have to have a schut. You have to merit the fact to live in Israel. The proof is that us, Amorites, are not sent out of this country until our cup is full. But really, the longer there is some type of merit we have, we can stay in Israel. So why are we out? Because our cup got full. Which means we messed up. We sinned enough that our time has come. If that's the case, so no one is secured in the land of Israel. Even the Jews can get the land, but at some point God is going to say, the board keeps on growing, the mark on the board keeps on coming up. I don't think the land is ready to keep you. Right? So they went and they were hiding the gold in their walls. Which hiding it, like we said before, means I'm putting it away for a long time, upping in their mind that throughout this time, the Jews are also going to be expelled from the land. We are going to come back home and take advantage of our gold. Meaning the very fact that they realized that God was patient with them to a certain point, so they learned that this is not a natural type of possession when it comes to Israel. Not because you have a home, that means that you are staying there. You have a home and you're staying there because you deserve to stay there. And even when you don't deserve to stay there, there is still a measure, there's still a cup which keeps on being measured. At which point, until which point am I going to keep you, and at which point I'm going to say, Ani kvar lo yachol yoter. That's what happened to them. If it happens to us, it can happen to the other people too. At least that's what they thought. At that point, they went and they kept it in the what's it called? They kept it in the walls. So basically, in other words, you have over here 2 approaches. You have Rashi and you have the Medrash. You have Rashi, but Rashi clearly sees it as something which specifically came to the Amorites. Matter of fact, it was the Amorites which it was the first nation which they actually conquered. Right? If you look in the simple verses in Parshat Chukas, the end of Bamidbar, it says clearly, the Sichon, the king of Amorite, was on the other side of the Jordan River, which was conquered by Yeshua ben Nun before the other nations. He was actually the first nation who was physically conquered. That's what Rashi speaks about the Amorites. Which means, in other words, that eventually everybody was hiding. But the first ones was the Amorites. And Rashi is emphasizing the first ones. But once they got the letter from Yeshua that we are coming, then everybody went to hide. But Rashi doesn't talk about the letters. Rashi goes back to which the child already learned in Chumash previously, that the Amorites are the ones who are going to be expelled first, because God somehow is waiting for them. They have to have something special, something about the Amorites. So here we take it a step further. Something very interesting we see regarding the nega. The Zohar actually says, first of all, the Zohar brings the Rashi that the reason there was nega on the walls because, they want to find gold there. This is like good news. But then the Zohar says something more. The Zohar says that the Canaanites were idol worshippers. And because they were idol worshippers, therefore their homes were filled with a spirit of impurity, a ruach of tumah. And the Zohar says that the reason God told the Jews that I'm going to afflict your homes with tzoras, because God wanted them to demolish those homes. And the Jew is going to have to construct a new home. I don't want you to stay in that home. I don't want you to be in that home. And each home, depending on which level of impurity it was, is the amount expected to transfer it. Some homes, it was the very fact that a Jew moved in there had already caused the tumah to disappear. Some homes, it was enough to put a mezuzah. Some homes, it was enough to remove one stone and then put another one. Some homes had to be completely demolished and reconstruct them because the amount of tumah, of impurity which was possessed in them home was so great that, in order to start a new lifestyle in the land of Israel, it had to be in such a way, in a way of complete demolishing. Something about the Amorites. This is what the Rebbe says, something very interesting. Why Amorites? Emor, what's Emor? You know why Negoim come for? We all learn it every year, that the purpose and the reason for Nega is why? Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara. What does Lashon Hara mean? Speaking bad about other people. Speaking slander. Speaking Lashon Hara about somebody else. What does Lashon Hara mean? Amira Ra'a. You saying something bad. Like the Rambam actually discusses the old process of tzoras. The Rambam says that it was a miraculous experience. God wanted us to stay away from Lashon Hara. So He gave us signs. He gave us indications. Stop talking. Here, I put one mark on your wall. Can you get a message? You didn't get it. You found the affliction on your clothes. You still didn't get the message. You're going to find it on your skin. Basically, the whole process and the purpose of tzoras was clearly to do what? To encourage us and to protect us from speaking Lashon Hara. Kabbalah says that every one of these 7 nations represent a certain type of klippa. Klipa is a power of impurity. It's called Klipa. The Alter Rebbe says, what is the Klipa of the Emoirites? What do they represent? What evil trait are they involved in? Emor. What's Emor? Omer. Medaber. He speaks. He talks nonsense. He talks foolishness. He talks wickedness. He talks Lashon Hara. That's what his name is. Emori. He's a talker. He's one who's Omer. Vayomer, right? He keeps on saying things. This is the Emoirite. That was the Klipa of Lashon Hara, which was the first Klipa and the first one of the nations which had to get rid of from Eretz Yisrael. The first king was Sichon, king of Emoiri. Because it's not only the physical group of Emoirites. There is a reason that God says in Brit Ben Aptarim, he says, Kilo Shalem Avon Aemori Ad Ena. I'm waiting for the sin of the Emoirite to get filled. At that point, they're gonna lose it. Which sin of the Emoirite? Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, the Klipa of the ones who keep on Omer. Omer, ve'omer, 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 keeps on saying and talking and talking and talking. Matter of fact, the punishment of us, Bnei Israel, staying in the desert for 40 years and not going into the land right after we received the Torah, was also for one and only reason. We spoke badly against, not even people, against the land of Eretz Yisrael. You speak Lashon Hara, Emor, you don't belong in Israel. Israel is a land which doesn't handle foolish speaking. No Emori. It doesn't handle other sinners too. But the more it's utmost sensitive when it comes to Lashon Hara, to slander, the way people speak. And that's what God told Abraham. I'm waiting for the Emoirite to get filled. And that's what God told Moshe. They spoke Lashon Hara. Israel is not ready for people who speak. At the other end, on the other end, the fact that the Emoirites went, and like God says, I am letting you know that the Emoirites are putting gold in the walls, and you are going to be rewarded, is the other side of the coin. There is something positive about the Emoirites, and this is what we call positive speaking. And more. The Rambam says, "Lesaper b'shvach haveroi." When you speak positively about somebody, you develop, you release positive energy of that person. Today, it's already well known. Parents and teachers are constantly being told the importance of speaking positively to their children, the importance of sharing with them positive messages, because as more positive you speak, you give them a bigger chance to bring out their positive energy, their abilities, their opportunities. When you speak negatively about someone, he said so, that very speech creates negativity. And this is the flip coin of the Emoirites. You can be an Emoirite, which is an ultimate clipper, a power of evil, that God tells Abraham once they fill up their cup, they are out. They are the first nation on the way to the land of Israel, which is going to be destroyed, because they are a nation which speaks evilly Lashon Hara. And we all have our own example, the example of the Meraglim, the spies. But at the same time, on the other end, you walk into the house of a Emoirite, in the hidden walls you can find what? You can find gold. What does it mean? An Emoiriite, the one who speaks, can release gold treasures which is hidden in the person who he speaks about. As long as you speak what? That you speak positive about it. It goes either way. It's all in the Emoiriite's hands. Like King Solomon says, Hamavet ve'achayim biyad halashon. Death and life is all in the hand of the tongue. The tongue will determine to which it goes, to which direction you take. So as we are all talking the last 24 hours about Israel, the world is celebrating Israel, and it is, all thanks to God, 70 years, Israel, a country with the greatest amount of Jews, millions and millions of Jewish men, women and children are being raised there, living a life there. I have my parents there. I have my grandparents who are buried there. I was born there. You all have family in Israel. You all have friends in Israel. And Israel needs a lot of bracha. And because it's such a special country, it invokes speech. Right? Mm-hmm. Something is unique, so you talk about it. That's the nature of it. And we have the choice to speak and how to speak. And we have to remember, as a good resolution in honor of Eretz Yisrael, is to try to keep ourselves away from speaking Lashon Hara about Israel. And it is not easy. Believe me, it is not easy. In the olden days, you had to live in Israel to know how difficult it is not to speak bad on the country. Today, with Facebook, with internet, you see all kinds of experiences in Israel by Israelis. As my mother goes like this. However, at the same time, frustrating, I understand. There's a need to improve 100%, but we cannot speak Lashon Hara. We cannot speak Lashon Hara. We can only either speak the good things of the land and then bring out further good. And if you see something bad, so it's enough that you saw it, you don't have to sit and discuss it. I will tell you a secret. Whatever bad things you know about Israel, that person that you're going to speak to knows that too, if not more. So you're really not gaining anything. You're not even sharing any news. You're just bubbling. You're just speaking slander on a land which is God's land, and a land which is, in God's eyes, utmost sensitive when it comes to speak against it, to speak Lashon Hara. That's it. It's hard to control our mouth. I'm not saying it's not easy, but I think in honor of Eretz Yisrael, and what we have learned tonight about the Emoriat, remember the Emori. You want to get a hold of the gold in the walls. Be the Emoriat in Kedusha, not the Emoriat in Klippa. I want to wish you all a good Shabbos and a wonderful day and a good week. I will ask the men, at least who are here, to stay in 2 minutes. We're going to have our beat. We have a million of you. Someone has to say Kaddish, at least say the Kaddish. Schneider, the evening services, which will be used during the week also. Thank you.